Hello and welcome back to Introduction to Astronomy. My name is Paul Eric and I teach physics, astronomy, and geology at Ozarks Technical Community College in Springfield, Missouri. Today we want to review for the Unit 4 lecture exam in Introduction to Astronomy. So we're not going to be covering any new material, so if you're one of my YouTube fans, there's nothing to see here. So you might want to check out earlier episodes of Introduction to Astronomy, or you might also be interested in watching my Introduction to Geology videos. Alright, so I guess everybody who's still watching me is eagerly wanting to know what's going to be on the Unit 4 exam. So it's going to be these lessons here, Lesson 19 on the structure of the universe, Lesson 20 on measuring the universe, Lesson 21 on fundamental forces and particles, Lesson 22 on the birth of the universe, Lesson 23 on dark matter, dark energy, and the fate of the universe, and then finally Lesson 24 on life in the universe. So remember that you do get to use a 3-inch by 5-inch card on the exam, and you can write anything that you want on either the front or the back of that. So make sure and bring that in with you. Any formulas, I'm going to give those to you, so they will be on the first page of the exam. But you have to know what all the letters mean in the formulas, and you need to know how to use the formulas. So we're going to first start off with lesson number 19 on the structure of the universe. So it's incredibly important that you read the lesson objectives for each of these lessons before you take the exam, because the questions are based right off of these lesson objectives. Okay, now this first one is going to be chapters 15 and 16 out of your textbook. And then also remember that there's always crash course astronomy videos available for these topics. Alright, so we're going to start off with star systems, and you need to know the difference between a population 1 type star and a population 2 type star. So for the population 2 type stars, those are the original stars that formed after the Big Bang. When they're element poor, that means that they only contain hydrogen and helium with maybe a little bit of lithium. So the original elements that formed after the Big Bang. So since these are the first stars to form, then that means that they're very old, and they're also going to be found in the halo of a galaxy, which is this material that surrounds the galaxy, and it's very similar to the Oort cloud for a solar system in that it represents the original material that formed the solar system. And then you need to know about population 1 type stars, which is what a population 2 type star evolves into. So after a population 2 type star has gone through its life cycle, it then has been enriched in heavier elements. And then as the star dies, those heavier elements can be jettisoned into outer space, and then they can become the raw materials for the population 1 type stars. So this is called the star-gas-star cycle. So you should know that for the exam. Okay, then you have clusters of stars, and you need to know the difference between an open cluster and a globular cluster. So globular clusters are the bigger star clusters, and they represent the original stars that formed after the Big Bang. And again, they're going to be found in the halo of the galaxy. And then what we think is that the collision of these globular clusters is what forms galaxies in the first place. Okay, then you can also have, however, open clusters of galaxies, which are going to be located in the plane of the galaxy. And these are your typical kinds of clusters that form just from the collapse of nebulas during the normal formation of stars in a galaxy. Okay, you will not need to know anything about our particular star cluster. All right, then we talked about galaxies. So you ought to know the name of our galaxy, which is the Milky Way galaxy. You ought to know the location of the sun in the Milky Way galaxy. So it's located approximately 2/3 out from the galactic center. And then you should also know, why does the Milky Way make this band that goes across the sky? So I will let you go back to the video where we talked about that, but that is something that you should know for the exam. Okay, then as far as statistics about the Milky Way galaxy, you definitely need to know that it's about 100,000 light years across, and that a typical galaxy contains about 100 billion stars. Now ours is a bigger galaxy, so it's got 200 billion, but a typical galaxy will have about 100 billion stars in it. Okay, and then you should know the parts of a galaxy. So you should know what the halo is. And so that's where the older stars that formed the galaxy reside. And then you ought to know that most galaxies have a central part to them where the stars are more congregated. And that's the reason why the central part of a galaxy is brighter. Then you ought to know what the disk of a spiral galaxy is. And you ought to know what the arms of a spiral galaxy are. And you also ought to know what causes those arms to form in the first place. Then you ought to know that galaxies have magnetic jets. So Earth has a magnetic field, comes out the north and in the south, okay, and then also the sun has a magnetic field, and so do galaxies. So we call these things magnetic jets. And then galaxies also have a dark halo. And in the dark halo, that's where the dark matter is. And then there's also dark matter in the galaxy itself. But in the outer part of the galaxy, it's more concentrated in this dark matter stuff. So that's going to be even outside of the halo of the galaxy. All right, let's take a break, and when we come back, we will talk about how do galaxies form, and then their different shapes, and then how do they change their shape.